Number 10, Chadwick Boseman. The late, great Chadwick Boseman was not just an incredible performer, but an incredible man. In his early years of acting, no matter what his status was, he was always vocal about the things that he did not agree with or understand. During a commencement speech to the graduating class of 2018 at his alma mater, Howard University, he spoke about a time when he was fired from a show for questioning the producers about the stereotypical depiction of his character. At first he was excited, as he was promised a six-figure contract, more money than he'd ever seen in his life. However, the moment he saw the role that he was playing, he was conflicted. The role was wrapped up in assumptions about people of color. He said that the character was just a young man with a violent streak pulled into the allure of gangs and with zero glimpse of positivity or talent in the character. After filming a handful of episodes, Chadwick brought his concerns to the attention of the producers, who told him that they were very pleased with his performance, a performance that he was actually fired from the next day. Apparently, the things that he was asking caught the producers off guard. The conversation over the character actually came up when he was called into the production office, and they were very happy with what he'd been doing on the show, and it was clear they wanted him around for a long time. But when they asked him if he needed anything to be more comfortable, it was his opening. He asked them if they could just discuss his character a bit for plot purposes, asking them only two questions. Where is my father? And if my mother is not equipped to be a good parent, why did myself and my brother need to go to foster care? While the producers did have answers, when Chadwick asked if they felt that he was a stereotypical character at all, the producers stared for a moment before suggesting that he speak to the writers if he had any suggestions. The goal was to give his character a new lease on life, but the next day, he was fired for speaking his mind, something he's never regretted once, and that never stopped him from pursuing his dreams. Number 9, Sylvester Stallone. Considering the success of the Beverly Hills Cop franchise, it's difficult to imagine anyone else in the leading role of Alex Foley other than Eddie Murphy. But it turns out that at the time, the role was initially offered to one of the biggest stars of the 1980s, Sylvester Stallone. What's funny still is that at the time he was not just a skilled actor, but earning an Oscar nomination for Best Original Screenplay for Rocky. But it seems that Rocky and the studio didn't really agree on many things, and eventually Stallone was exited from the project. One of the first major changes in Sly's version of the script was the violence. He wanted it to be ramped up to 100 and make it a real action movie. But the film was presented to him as a comedy. Even though he agreed to do it, he wanted to make some changes before the cameras rolled. He was exclusively told not to change anything about the film, but he insisted and rewrote the project as a 50-50 action comedy movie. When he presented the changes to the producers, they were not pleased with his script. In fact, quite the opposite. It was quickly decided that Sylvester would be let go as the lead and Eddie Murphy would be brought in to fill in the blanks. It was not in vain, as he took that mangled script, incorporated elements of the novel Fair Game by Paula Gosling, and eventually it became the 1986 film Cobra. Although it wasn't loved by critics, it did go on to make around $160 million globally, which pretty good at the time. Number 8, Edward Norton. Three-time Academy Award nominee Edward Norton has been the leading man in many memorable movies: Primal Fear, American History X, and of course the most famous one, but as we all know, but of course, one of his most famous and mainstream roles was in the 2008 MCU flick, The Incredible Hulk. Although the movie was not a massive success at first, the audience was shocked when Edward Norton was replaced by Mark Ruffalo in the first Avengers film. The president of Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige, said that the decision was not monetary, but it was actually due to the company wishing to hire an actor who embodied the creativity and collaboration that the other Marvel stars had so far shown on their projects. After Kevin made these statements, however, Norton was amicable but adamant about splitting ways with Marvel, and mentioned that his roles in Birdman and Moonrise Kingdom would oppose the loud and extravagant role that he had in the MCU. Many believe that his calm response may be because he was paid handsomely before he was let go as a little bit of hush money. Marvel is good at hiding secrets, especially from their actors, but it was still so early in the MCU that Edward was certainly aware of hidden details and events that would make him a liability in the industry. Number 7, Colin Firth. The live-action Paddington movies are surprisingly very popular. The series, based on the children's book, has really hit home for a lot of people. First and second film are currently rated at 97% and 99% fresh, respectively. 99. The success of the film can of course be attributed to the incredible cast, including the voice of Paddington, Ben Whishaw. But of course, Ben was not the first voice that had been recorded for the role. Initially, the voice of Paddington was done by Kingsman star Colin Firth. I know he's been in other things, but I love those movies and that's how I know him best. Not only did Colin record all of the lines start to finish, but he was not told that he was being replaced until a couple of months before the premiere. In some of the first promotional videos for the film, the animated bear never does anything more than grunt. It turns out that the creative team felt Colin's voice just didn't match with the vibe that they were going for. It made Paddington sound too old and distinguished when he needed to be some fresh young thing. Yeah, he was just happy to be working. Now let's get into some more dark Hollywood backstories, shall we? Number 6, Jim Carrey's origins. A Canadian legend, Jim is considered one of the greatest modern comedians of all time, famously releasing 3 films in the year 1995, Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, and Ace Ventura, which all made millions at the box office, and still hold up to this day. As many know, comedians tend to have a pretty rough backstory, as the best comedy comes from a place of pain. Over the years, Jim has come clean about his strange but fun upbringing. His family struggled financially, and he grew up watching his mother struggle with depression, which he claims to have passed down to him. Despite his energy, he was a bit of a recluse growing up and apparently spent hours in his room making faces in the mirror instead of hanging out with. After dropping out of high school to work a full-time job, Jim and his family were forced to live in a Volkswagen van together, becoming homeless for a short period of time. He went on to attempt a career in comedy, at first to minimal success, but of course, he was able to find his footing and made his place in comedy history. Number 5. Woody Harrelson's father. Woody is best known in Hollywood as the wildest wild child to ever exist. He eats raw meat, he's an eco-crusader, a protester against violence, and an advocate for the legalization of herbs and spices in the United States. He's loved on screen, but did you know that his father took people out for money? And I'm not talking about on dates. Charles Harrelson was sentenced to 2 lifetime sentences for the slaying of a federal judge in San Antonio. Prior to that charge, Charles had previously been acquitted for the slaying of Alan Berg, a carpet salesman, and convicted of the slaying of Sam DeGalia Jr. Yeah, the evidence shows that Charles was not a great hitman. Woody doesn't speak much of his father these days, opting to instead leave his family troubles in the past. He does, however, say that the one thing that his father said to him that he still uses to this day was, always keep an open mind. Yeah, Charles knew all about opening minds. You can't put that in the video, that's just for the editor.
I just did.
Number 4, Mark Wahlberg should be in jail. Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch hit the rap scene in 1991. Despite sounding like the title of a cheesy kids show, the crew had a small following and garnered a lot of success, enough for leading man Mark Wahlberg to be spotted and picked up by Hollywood to star in The Corruptor, a 1999 action flick that sees Mark playing the leading man. Action by the numbers, kinda get it? He's had a successful acting career that has recently been declining in quality, but he's still acting and looks jacked at the age of 50-something. So please don't hurt me, Mark Wahlberg. Infinite was just hard to watch. Growing up in Boston, he was the youngest of 9 children and was relentlessly bullied by his fellow siblings. His parents divorced when he was very young, and he became addicted to no-no snow by the age of 13. He dropped out of high school and was eventually arrested when he was 18 for attempting to slay 2 Vietnamese men. Apparently, he was just walking home late one night under the influence of a hallucinogen narcotic that I won't get into, when he spotted the men. Close friends at the time confirmed that Mark had a racial biased upbringing, which caused him to be instantly aggressive towards anyone who, wasn't white. He attempted to swing a large log at them, which made contact and knocked one of them unconscious, and he was eventually released after serving only 45 days of his 2-year prison sentence, and he vowed to change his life. So far, he's kept that promise. I can personally confirm that he's very polite and patient because he actually watched a movie at a theater I used to work at. He travels with a crew of 5 people at all times. It's a little intimidating. Number 3, Tim Allen's hobbies. Tim Allen is the voice of Buzz Lightyear and the star of ABC's sitcom Home Improvement, which premiered in 1991. Now, while he may have played a family man on TV, many fans may not know that Tim was a smuggler of no-no snow in the early 1970s. According to Tim, he got mixed up with some bad people back in the day while he was selling certain substances on the street for a couple of bucks. In 1978, Tim was arrested in the Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport, that's an awesome name, and was caught with more than 650 grams, 1.4 pounds of no-no snow. Unfortunately for Tim, state legislators had just passed a law that tied a life sentence to any conviction of selling 650 or more, Like, as he was being arrested, there was a guy in his car like, okay, and if you have 650 grams. Okay, yeah, you're a goner, Tim. However, that sentence was never served, as it was revealed that Tim was set up by an undercover police officer who had been following him for months. Due to this, and Tim's cooperation in providing the names of fellow dealers to the authorities, led to him receiving a lighter conviction that allowed him to be sentenced in a federal court instead of a state one, being able to ignore that new policy altogether. His information led to 20 arrests and the sentencing of a major dealer. That needs to be a movie. Number 2, they have backups. There have been many rumors over the years that Hollywood likes to clone their best and brightest on the off chance that they will need them again following an untimely demise. According to the internet, Paul Rudd actually got to star alongside his clone in the show Living With Yourself, not some CGI thing. Now, Paul has, of course, claimed the performance was achieved with CGI and filming one character one day and another the next, but come on, Paul Rudd's also 54 and looks, well, like that. Something's not right about that. Now, there is a theory out there that celebrities are made up of lizard people who take the forms of actors and singers to influence people. Paul is thought to be one of those lizard people. I don't know. I don't believe this theory. I'm just sharing some stuff I found on the internet. I don't believe any of this, okay? This is fun. It would be awesome if there were 2 Paul Rudds, though. In fact, that would probably be the most chill way to find out that clones existed. Just 2 Pauls being like, hi, I'm Paul. And another one being like, hi, I'm Paul. And everything's gonna be okay. Number 1, they're all broke. That's right, despite it being one of the most lucrative industries in the world, most of Hollywood actors, writers, directors, all of them are not as well off as people may think. Unless you've been living under a rock for the last little bit, most of Hollywood was closed for a while as its staff were on strike. Some of the toppest of tier actors joined the crew in solidarity, and they are actually still on strike right now, not stopping until Hollywood's producers and big budget studios start sharing the money they make. Actor Sean Gunn gave an interview a few weeks ago where he mentioned working on a show currently streaming on Netflix, a show that has made over $4 million in residuals, of which he has received basically nothing. This type of financial woe extends to a ton of people in Hollywood. Just wanted to take a moment to wish luck to anyone who's still out there, and hey, awesome that the writer part of the strike is over. That's pretty sick. Number 10, Secret Son. While many know of the existence of Jaden and Willow Smith, did you know that Will Smith has a 3rd son? Trey Smith was the product of Will's previous marriage to Cherie Zampino and tends to fly under the radar in the eyes of the media. In 2018, Jada brought Zampino onto her show and spilled the tea on the real story behind Trey, their relationship to each other, and Will's role as his biological father. For many Smith fans, this was the first time that we'd actually ever heard about Trey. Will claims that he had to distance himself from Trey and his mother following the divorce. Will recounts struggling to maintain a healthy enough relationship with Zampino for him to play the role of Trey's father. Trey was raised by his mom alone, growing up feeling betrayed and abandoned by Will. Eventually, Will made amends and became a proper part of Trey's life, but for a long time, Trey was kept hidden from the public, surely leaving a stain on the family unit that will never be washed away. Number 9, 7-year separation. Cheating rumors and dating scandals have followed this couple through their entire relationship. Since day one, people were convinced that they were in an open relationship, or maybe they were cheating on each other on and off basically the entire time. Well, it turns out that those rumors were kind of true. Ahead of the release of her new book, Worthy, Jada sat down with People magazine to share some inside info. The most revealing was that herself and Will Smith had actually been separated for 7 years. Despite appearing to be a happy couple on the outside, the truth was they decided to go their separate ways, emotionally speaking, a long time ago. Since 2016, Jada and Will have been living in the same house and appearing on red carpets together, but behind the scenes they actually just don't do anything together. Considering the massive size of Will's house, it's easy to imagine Jada choosing her own little section and just decorating it to her liking. She continued to say that she felt pressured into being with Will because it was mainly his idea to get together in the first place, 2 kids and 1 marriage later, and it would appear that Jada finally came to her senses and decided to split. Number 8, Will's orientation. In 2012, Star Magazine published an expose on Will that somehow stuck around for years. The outlet alleged that Will and his wife were headed for divorce because of his growing bromance with fellow actor Dwayne Martin, which was speculated upon due to the multiple outings that the pair shared in a short span of time. Because, people can't be buddies anymore. The rumor was only intensified when Jada expressed her dislike for their friendship, saying that she felt like Will flaunted it in her face. He takes Dwayne out all day and on exotic vacations, and while she just sits at home alone in her university-sized house. While it's never actually been confirmed, the fact that multiple sources accused Will of basically the same thing makes people believe that there may be some merit to the rumors, but who knows and who cares? Number 7, Will Smith almost ended his father's life. The Smiths are famous for getting into way too much detail when discussing their family history. Will Smith released a memoir called Will in 2021 that was chock full of juicy information that most certainly should have remained secret. One of the most shocking revelations in the book would have resulted in Will spending his life in prison had he followed through with his plans. The actor explained his father, Will Smith Sr., got physical towards himself and his mother constantly. As a young one, he vowed to seek revenge for his mother when he was older and capable of more. Eventually, his father was diagnosed with cancer, and Will was forced to take care of him while he was bedridden. Will saw this as the perfect opportunity to take Papa down. He wrote one night, "As I delicately wheeled him from his bedroom towards the bathroom, a darkness arose within me." Ugh. He then went on to describe the moment that he contemplated pushing this man down the stairs and noted that no one would have suspected him and the moment would have been perfect. He wrote, "I am one of the best actors in the world. My 911 call could have been Academy Award level." Will ultimately decided not to end his father's life, obviously, instead taking care of him until he passed away in 2016. Number 6, interview evidence. When Jada revealed the truth about her separation from Will, she claimed that by the time they reached 2016 that they'd just become exhausted with trying to make things work. The news of their separation was like a mild shock to most people, as Super Sleuth fans claimed to have proof that Will and Jada were separated a long time ago, and the proof is in the interviews. The first clip to be submitted as evidence was Will and Jada's Red Table Talk interaction, in which she admitted to the entanglement with musician Oxtal Zena and simultaneously admitted to a brief separation between herself and Will. In the conversation, she literally says that herself and Will had basically broken up, but instead of just outright admitting the information right then and there, she decided to hold on to it for a better time. Many Jada fans have commented on the resurfaced clips, saying that Will looks drained, clearly dealing with a ton mentally. Jada is a calculated woman. Why reveal all the juicy gossip that she's got so early in her life when she could probably just wait and it'll help sell some books? She was probably ready to tell the world what happened as soon as it happened, but held onto the information as a way to give her a boost in the future if it was needed. Is it really a surprise that she's releasing all this information right when her book's coming out? Give them a scoop so they have to buy more and get the good stuff. Good move, but very manipulative, lady. Number 5, gets busy to relax. While the Smiths have famously entangled with other celebrities throughout their marriage, Will once again shared just a bit too much information in his book Will, and at one point he made a not so shocking confession. When he was younger, Will was dating a woman named Melanie, who he discovered was cheating on him while he was away from work. Smith was deeply attached to his former girlfriend and to just women in general. In his book, Will writes that he always needed a woman to achieve for. Prior to Melanie, Will had only been with one other woman physically, but following the breakup, Will claims to have gone hyena mode over the next few months, making love to anyone who would consent. At first using this as a way to relax and feel better about the relationship, it eventually grew into a full-fledged addiction, to the point where Will claims to have suffered a psychosomatic reaction from the escapades, causing him to occasionally vomit the moment he reaches completion. Again, I didn't need that image in my head, I didn't need to know that, but since I have to suffer, now you have to as well. Number 4, that's what she said. As we all know by now, Will Smith doesn't like Chris Rock putting his wife's name in his mouth, okay? After the altercation that took place in 2022 at the Oscars, a ton of people were convinced that it was Jada who told Will to do it. Will was laughing moments before taking the stage and doing his thing. According to Jada, she actually had zero part in the altercation and thought that the entire thing was a skit right up until she saw Will walking back towards her. The fury in this man's eyes could not be faked. She revealed that she actually didn't mind the G.I. Jane joke all that much. I mean, sure, she didn't appreciate it, but according to her, she in no way told Will Smith to strike her Madagascar co-star. The first thing that she had actually apparently said to him when he sat down was just, "Are you okay?" He went up to accept his award for Best Actor and later apologized for his actions. Despite the apology, he was banned from attending the Oscars for 10 years, and so far, he has not spoken to Chris Rock face to face. Number 3, Weird science. Now, while I can't say what this belief system is actually called, it's usually spoken in reference to Hollywood madman Tom Cruise and involves L. Ron Hubbard, so that should be enough for you to piece it together. Jada Pinkett Smith was briefly involved in the community and still partakes in some of its methods to this day. Jada and the rest of her family have often been linked to the controversial religion, though no members apart from Jada have ever actually admitted to being involved in any way, shape, or form. While Jada denies that she is a full-fledged member, the facts are she's been spotted attending several church events over the years. Former member Leah Remini backed up the claims of Jada's involvement, telling the Daily Beast that she herself interacted with Jada at an event taking place at the Science Celebrity Center, essentially a giant room with famous nutcases, and Tom Cruise probably has an apartment in there. If you want proof that the Smiths are involved in the religion, the family literally founded a school that contained an exclusively science-based curriculum. That'd be like me opening a library containing just the Twilight books and being like, man, what are you talking about? I freaking hate Twilight. Why does everybody think I like Twilight so much? Number 2, they actually suck. While rumors plagued Will and Jada from the moment that they were married, their careers never seemed to suffer at all. In fact, some would argue that Will was slowly taking over the Hollywood world, starring in movies like the Men in Black franchise, I Am Legend, and Bad Boys. It wasn't until he struck Chris Rock at the Oscars ceremony live in front of the world that the truth began to be revealed. Will exposed himself as an impulsive and aggressive man, hidden behind a big smile. When Chris insulted Jada Pinkett Smith by joking about his excitement for G.I. Jane in the movie, Will initially laughed, but of course he went on stage and we all know that he didn't find it funny. Will won Best Actor that night, but it would be the last good thing that ever happened to this man. The Academy banned him from attending any events in the next 10 years, he's been blacklisted in Hollywood, and Jada's talk show on Facebook was cancelled. So it turns out the most sane people in the Smith family are Will's kids, and I'm not sure how to feel about that. Number 1, Oscars confusion. Now that all this information is being leaked into the world by Jada herself, one major question was still lingering on everyone's minds. If she hasn't been with Will for 7 years, why did he feel like it was necessary to defend her and strike Chris Rock at the Oscars? Many fans have flooded social media with questions and concerns surrounding the incident. Now, if you don't remember, how? Chris Rock made fun of Jada for being bald, Will Smith went on stage and took him out for it, the end. Now, if Will Smith had been attending Chris Rock's stand-up special that came out earlier this year, who knows what would have happened? It was fantastic, you should really check it out. Despite Will claiming that playing the role of King Richard had left him in an odd mental state, it really was no excuse for his outburst, especially if he had not been romantically involved with Jada in years. The main point being made by some is that despite Will and Jada not being together romantically, that they remained close friends, and in that instance, Will was defending his very good friend, right? But that's still no excuse for causing Marty the Zebra pain. Man, I love Madagascar. You should check it out. Will has claimed that he tried to reach out to Chris following the Oscars, but that he was told Chris wasn't ready to talk. Either that, or he was ready but knew that he would just fly off the handle the moment that he heard Will Smith's voice.
Number 10, Jennifer Aniston nearly quit. Jennifer was the last to sign for the final 10th season of Friends, and she very nearly didn't return at all. Part of this was down to her busy career because at this point, she was definitely one of the most famous of the Friends cast. She had several movies on the slate. She later revealed that she was debating not coming back because she had a couple of issues that she was dealing with at the time. Jennifer said that she wanted to end the show when people still loved them and they were on a high. She also questioned herself about how long she really wanted to play Rachel. Jennifer obviously eventually agreed to the final season, but she is the reason why it's the shortest season, because she only agreed to return if it was cut short. Luckily for everyone, she decided to stay and felt bittersweet about the final season, and in the end she found herself wishing that it could have continued on. Most of the cast members' careers have crashed and burned after Friends ended, but Jennifer Aniston was a rare exception. She went on to star in several Hollywood blockbusters like Bruce Almighty, Break Up, Marley and Me, Just Go With It, Horrible Bosses, and We're the Millers, all of which were very successful at the box office. Number 9, Matthew struggled with substances. As we know, Matthew Perry's sudden death has completely shocked the world. The beloved actor was found at his home after an apparent drowning. He was only 54 years old, and his passing was an absolute tragedy. Many of the Friends cast struggled to deal with their newfound fame, and for Matthew, this led to problems with addiction, which he has been extremely open about in his memoir. Although he said that he was never drunk on set, he did admit to being painfully hungover to the point that everyone became aware of. After more than one stint in rehab, he managed to get clean, and then he became very passionate about helping other people who were struggling. Just last year, he revealed that he and Jennifer Aniston had stayed in each other's lives, and they remained in close contact. He said that it was actually Jennifer who confronted him first about his addictions during the filming of the show. Apparently she approached him during a break and told him, "We know you're drinking." And looking back on that moment, Matthew thought that it was very scary, because in his own mind he thought he was doing a perfectly fine job of hiding his habits from his co-stars. At a certain point they all knew that he was in trouble and they did their best to support him. Number 8. Lisa Kudrow sued the show. Lisa Kudrow's manager Scott Howard sued her in 2008, year after she ended her contract with him, and 4 years after Friends ended. Howard claimed that Lisa owed him residuals for the reruns of Friends and other projects that she had worked on while under his management, to the tune of 10% of everything that she got. He stopped paying him when the contract was dissolved and argued that the 10% was only payable when he was managing her. Eventually he won the case in 2014 and the judge awarded him $1.6 million. Of course, for someone who earned $1 million per episode for the final seasons of Friends, that figure wouldn't have put too much of a dent in her bank account. In a statement, Lisa's attorney said, "The jury's verdict is merely one step in the legal process. This case will ultimately be resolved at the appellate level. Mrs. Kudrow has faith in the judicial system, and she believes that the eventual outcome of this contractual dispute will be in her favor." In a statement of his own, Scott Howard's attorney said, "What generally happens now with unsophisticated actress clients is they overpay for filing a frivolous appeal that has no chance for success. So this legal battle got extremely messy in the end, and it must have been embarrassing to be a part of." Number 7. David Schwimmer went into hiding. As we know, David struggled with the fame that came from being such a huge hit at such a young age. Of the main 6 actors in Friends, he's the one who has shied away from the limelight the most. Although he continued to work after the show ended, he spent many years preferring to do voice work, directing, producing, and has been candid about struggling to find a way to continue acting as he's such a huge celebrity. He said, "It was pretty jarring and it messed with my relationships with other people in a way that took years. I need to kind of adjust to and become comfortable. It made me want to hide under a baseball cap and not be seen. So I was trying to figure out, how do I be an actor in this new world, in this new situation?" Friends was such a huge hit from the moment it premiered that it didn't just bring fame to its stars, it brought a mega level of fame that is hard to understand. For David, it was just too hard to deal with. So much so that it didn't just affect him, but his relationships and other people as well. He was also an actor who, as a part of his craft, liked to be anonymous and observe people out in the world. But of course, he simply could not do that anymore once he reached that certain level of success. Number 6. Matt LeBlanc was arrested. Before he became famous, Matt was already getting used to that crazy party lifestyle that most people associate with being a celebrity. After Friends was finished, he admitted that he was arrested for drunk driving twice. He said, "When I was young and stupid, I wasn't driving fast, just crooked." This came up when he was cast as one of the hosts of the new Top Gear, and fans were not sure whether a history of reckless driving was a good thing when it came to presenting a show about cars. Matt dismissed the incidents as the product of his age, although he has said that he's grateful the press never got a hold of his mugshots. While his drunk driving record happened before fame and fortune came to him, he also got into some pretty dark times when it came to dealing with his newfound fame. He nearly had a nervous breakdown due to the intensity of working on Friends, especially when the show came to an end. Speaking about that time, Matt said that for years and years he barely left the house because he was so burnt out. He wanted not to have a schedule and not to have to be anywhere. Luckily, he was in a position financially to be able to do that with all of his savings, but of course his agent was not too happy. Matt said that was a very dark time for him and it even led to a nervous breakdown. Number 5. Jennifer Aniston's wedding. While not every cast is close off screen, the cast of Friends was known for being friends in real life, as well as having a huddle before each episode started filming and negotiating their salaries as a team. The cast were often photographed out and about together, and they talked in interviews about how close they remained, even after the filming ended. I mean, Jennifer Aniston is even godmother to Courtney Cox's daughter. But in 2015, when she married Justin Theroux, she didn't invite any of her male co-stars to the ceremony. It was a small wedding with only 70 guests, but it did include Courtney and Lisa. Matthew Perry said that he was surprised he wasn't invited, but he was still very happy for the couple, despite the awkwardness of rejection. Hopefully though, he didn't take too much offense, considering that Jennifer didn't even invite her own mother to her wedding with Brad Pitt in 2000. In an interview with Ellen in 2018, she opened up about why she went years without talking to her mother Nancy Dow, saying, quote, "She was critical, she was very critical of me. Because she was a model, she was beautiful, magnificent, I wasn't, I never was." She added that her mother was very unforgiving and would often hold long grudges. They ended up reuniting several years later, and by Jen's marriage to her second husband Justin in 2015, they were finally on speaking terms. But the funny thing is, Nancy still wasn't invited to that wedding either. Number 4, David's neighbors hated him. Even stars have feuds with their neighbors, and David Schwimmer is no exception. In 2010, the star bought a property in the East Village townhouse from 1852, and of course the land that it stood on. But he decided that rather than renovate it to keep up the facade, he would just tear the whole thing down and start fresh. It's something that a lot of property developers are known for doing, but it's never really a popular decision. As a result, an anonymous neighbor left a message for him that was too big to ignore. For some reason, they decided it would really upset him if they spray painted in huge letters on the construction site fence. They wrote the words, "Ross is not cool," which is both hilarious and kind of genius because it actually echoed a storyline from the show, where Ross moves into a new building and becomes enemies with the neighbors by not chipping in for the maintenance man's retirement gift, which kind of goes to show you that life really does imitate art. There's no saying how David reacted to this, but you can imagine that he wouldn't be too pleased that the construction site had graffiti. Matthew's extreme anxiety. Matthew Perry admitted 2 years ago that he suffered from anxiety, which often came when he was trying to be as funny as he could in front of the live studio audience while they were filming Friends. The admission came up during the HBO Max Friends reunion with Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, Matt LeBlanc, and David Schwimmer. Matthew said that trying to be great made him extremely nervous, and his co-stars at the reunion said they never had any idea that he was suffering on set because he always delivered such a fabulous performance while being seemingly at ease. He said, "To me, I felt like I was going to die if they didn't laugh. And it's not healthy for sure, but I would sometimes say a line and they wouldn't laugh and I would sweat and just go into convulsions if I didn't get the laugh I was supposed to get. I would freak out." His co-star Lisa was shocked to hear that. She said that Matthew was always such a cool cucumber, and he was one of the best on set, always delivering a line well as he played Chandler. Even though he never said anything to his co-stars back then, he felt this way every single night. And as we know now, his time on Friends was significantly impacted by his addiction. Memoir controversy. One surprise takeaway from Matthew Perry's autobiography was his apparent feelings towards Keanu Reeves, after he repeatedly questioned why other actors die while Keanu is still alive. Quote, "Why is it that original thinkers like River Phoenix and Heath Ledger die, but Keanu Reeves still walks among us?" Upon learning that another former co-star, Chris Farley, had died, he wrote, "I punched a hole through Jennifer Aniston's dressing room wall when I found out." And in the next line he wrote, "Keanu Reeves still walks among us." Matthew would later apologize for the comments and then release a statement saying, "I'm actually a big fan of Keanu. I just chose a random name, my mistake. I apologize." But that wasn't it at all. There was also a lot of other interesting admissions in his memoir. Another thing he also revealed is that he asked out Jennifer Aniston before filming Friends. He said that the two of them were the only Friends stars who knew each other before the show, having met 3 years before through mutual acquaintances. In one part of the book he wrote, "I was immediately taken by her. How could I not be? And liked her. I got the sense that she was intrigued too, and maybe it was going to be something." Safe to say that fans were more than shocked by that revelation. And number 1, everyone was scared of Matt LeBlanc. Now Joey is far from a scary guy, but when Matt LeBlanc was first cast in the role, some of the other cast members were a little bit afraid of him. This fear was based off of what they knew about Matt himself. The fact that he was raised by a mechanic and had done a stint as a male model as well, and had done a stint as a male model, as well as what they knew about the character of Joey, who is known as a very forward womanizer. Jennifer Aniston in particular remembers being intimidated before she met him herself. She said, "I was scared of that type of guy. He thinks it's very funny now, and actually he can sit down and comfort me just like Courtney or Lisa could." So it's a good thing that Matt turned out to be just as much of a sweetheart as Joey was, despite a slightly rocky start.
Number 10, Justin Timberlake. One of the most discussed sections of the memoir is of course the revelation of what really happened when Britney and her Mickey Mouse Club co-star Justin Timberlake got together. After meeting JT in the clubhouse, the two sparked a romantic connection. Their connection was strong, but unfortunately Britney had to make a difficult decision in the year 2000 after she found out she was pregnant. At first, Britney was actually pretty excited about the whole thing. In her book, she revealed that she had planned on starting a family with Justin at some point, but this was just going to be a little bit earlier than she expected. It turns out Justin was not so excited and told her that they were both too young to be starting a family, continuing to remind her that their careers would also need to be put on pause. This revelation may be part of the reason that Justin was reportedly so nervous leading up to the book's release. Britney revealed that if the decision had solely been left to her, she would have gone through with the pregnancy, but she decided to go the opposite route instead. She claims to have only done it because Justin just so clearly did not want to be the father. In the book, she said that, look back, it's one of the most agonizing things she had ever experienced in her life. Number 9. Mama Spears. One thing that comes up a lot in Britney Spears' memoir is her relationship to her parents. She discusses the strain that has been placed especially on the bond between herself and her mother, Lynn Spears. She dives deep into her childhood and what really went down, and in the book she said that she started drinking no-no juice with her mother when she was just in the 8th grade. Of course, that is awful and nobody should ever do that because Britney wouldn't just have a sip of grape juice now and again. No, she would drink no-no juice like it was her job. She explained that for fun, she started having fruity no-no juice with her mom while they were in Biloxi, Mississippi. To make things feel less, illegal, they would call the drinks toddies, named after the adult beverage that's basically just no-no tea. Britney felt a special bond with her mother because of this, especially considering the contrast between her mom and her father, Jamie. You see, when her mom had a few, she was bubbly and happy, and same with Britney, but when Jamie had a few, he would get angry and depressed. The behavior is terrible, and while bonding with your parents is pretty awesome, that is not the right way to do it. Number 8. The Snake. Britney Spears has performed at the Video Music Awards a few times over her career, but none quite as memorable as her infamous dance with the snake at the 2001 VMA ceremony. Britney walked on stage and began a performance of I'm a Slave for You with a massive snake draped across her shoulders. At first it seemed cool, but throughout the performance she doesn't look at it once, keeping her head down or aimed directly at the audience. In the memoir she revealed that she is not only terrified of snakes, but that this one actually started hissing in her ears while she was on stage. Partway through the performance, the snake wraps around her and puts its face right near her ear where she claims it hissed so loudly that for a moment she thought it was going to bite her face off. But she continued with the performance, and thankfully she still has her face, so that's very good. Number 7. The Notebook. While Britney may be known for her musical talents, she did have a short career in the film industry in the early 2000s. Her first role was in the film Crossroads, which, despite having a stellar cast, was apparently a very difficult experience for Britney. Although she was thrown off by that film, she was actually offered the co-starring lead role in The Notebook. The process went so deep that before production was set to begin, it was down to her and Rachel McAdams for the part. Now, we all know what happened when Rachel McAdams got the role. She had a terrible time on set and spent 2 years with Ryan Gosling off screen. Yay! Britney said it would have been fun to reconnect with her Mickey Mouse Club co-star Ryan Gosling for a full-length feature, but in the end she's pretty glad that they didn't pick her. She instead decided to work on her album In the Zone, putting her creative efforts to good use despite this Hollywood rejection. Now, while the film has gone down in history as a rom-com classic, nobody can even fathom what a Britney and Ryan-led movie might have looked like. But it probably would have looked something like this. Number 6. Mickey Mouse Club. Now, I actually didn't know this because, to be honest, I'm not a big Britney Spears fan. Oh, I know it's a shocker, I just scream pop music, but the first time I saw this woman on screen was genuinely in Austin Powers Goldmember, and her head exploded. So, overall, pretty solid first impression. However, her actual first role in the acting world took place in 1993, after she landed a gig on the Mickey Mouse Club, a show that would turn out to be a huge part of her life. Despite the colorful set and overall just Disney-ness of the show, Britney explained that filming was never easy. She revealed that the show was like being at a boot camp for the entertainment industry. Extensive dance rehearsals, singing lessons, acting classes, time in the recording studio, school in between, it was a lot. In fact, much like school, she explained that the show's cast was divided into cliques, with the younger castmates being in one crew and the olders being in the other. She admitted that there were some fun moments, like sharing a little smooch with Justin Timberlake, but it was still a very grueling job. She said it was extremely hard to work, and more often than not, the groups would be in rehearsal practicing choreography 30 times a day. That's like 28 times too many. At the end of the day, Britney treated the club like a job that took up a ton of her childhood. Number 5. Jamie Spears. Britney's father, Jamie, has had a complex relationship with his daughter for most of her life. In her memoir, she shared the harsh judgment she constantly received from her papa. She explained that she thought getting criticized for her body in the press was bad, but it hurt even more when it was coming from her own father. He repeatedly told her that she looked heavy and that she really needed to do something about it. He wasn't that nice, but I'm paraphrasing. She explained that even as a small child, he never gave her the love or the attention that she needed. In the book, she said said that feeling like you are never good enough is a soul-crushing state for a young child. He drummed that message into her growing up, and even after she accomplished so much, he was continuing to make her feel like dirt. Jamie's wild opinions about Britney got so much worse when she was under her conservatorship. Under the conservatorship, Jamie was named as one of the several people in her life that could make important decisions for her, mind, body, and soul, and she was forced to grow her recently shaved hair back and get back into shape. For 13 years, Jamie remained in control of her life, right up until the suspension in 2021. Speaking of which, number 4, conservatorship. As many may know, Britney was placed under a psychiatric hold in 2008 following what we will call a difficult evening, and was later placed under a conservatorship by her father Jamie. In her book, she explained what she had been going through at the time. She said that shaving her head and acting out were her ways of pushing back. Under the conservatorship, she was made to understand that those days were now over. She had to grow her hair back, get back into shape, and she went to bed early and had to take whatever medications that they told her to. Britney revealed that she felt like an infant under the conservatorship and lost her passion for music. She explained that she started to feel more and more like a thing on stage rather than a person. In her book, she said she had always felt music in her bones, but her family kind of stole that from her. She reminded readers of the contrast between male and female artists, telling them to think of all the male artists who've gambled their money away, who had substance control issues or mental health issues, and many of them have never had control of their bodies or money taken away. Before the book was released, people were just under the impression that the conservatorship was some kind of a financial thing, but as her book has revealed, it's a lot darker than that. Number 3, the secret man. Among the many things being revealed in Britney's memoir, one shocking revelation was that she actually met and fell in love with a man while under her conservatorship that almost led her to fleeing the US with said man. She explained that she was talking to a guy that she really liked, and he wanted her to leave the country with him. Not creepy at all. They had a secret relationship for quite some time and were eventually set to make the journey across the sea. But when she opened up about the romance to her assistant, she was hesitant, saying that she was worried what her father may do. Her assistant guaranteed nothing would happen, but was proven wrong when she was forced into a mental health facility around the same time that she was supposed to leave the country. And there's never been a confirmation if the two situations are related, but it kind of feels like it is. Yeah, it feels like they were. Number 2, finding her voice. Britney has been through a ton in her life, but it turns out that we didn't even know the half of it. During her court testimonies, while she was attempting to reclaim her freedom, she said that she was forced to go to a mental health facility against her will in early 2019. It was almost 2 years ago that she regained control of her millions and every other aspect of her life. In 2022, her father requested to unseal all of the records from the duration of her conservatorship. Britney's attorney, Matthew Rosengart, called this move offensive and highly inappropriate. He explained that they did not believe a father who loves his daughter would file to unseal her medical records. Makes sense. Britney's new book is a new revelation to her side of things. A little over a year ago, her younger sister Jamie Lynn released a book called Things I Should Have Said, and in it she included a ton of details regarding Britney that seemed to paint her in a bad light. But most of Britney's fans felt that the stories were just a way to profit off her older sister during a time when she was still making headlines. And at number 1, lost all control. As previously mentioned, when Britney was placed under her conservatorship, every single aspect of her life was controlled by someone else, and mostly her dad. She was unable to make financial, physical, or personal decisions without running them through Lil Papa Jamie first, a man who is just notorious for being a terrible person both inside and out. While the conservatorship was dropped in 2021, the pain of her time is still lingering. She said that the conservatorship stripped her of her womanhood and made her feel like a child. In her memoir, Britney revealed that if she had been allowed to make her own decisions instead of her father, that she would be in a much better place. She wrote that 13 years of her life went by with her feeling like a shadow of herself. She constantly thinks back to the times her father would control her body or her money, and it makes her sick to her stomach. Most of her life was controlled by someone else for a very long time, but now that she's free, who knows what will happen next. Number 10. Contestants are prisoners. Most reality shows force their contestants to share a living space for the duration of their stay. On air, it seemed like everyone on Love is Blind was granted access to this cozy little private room all to themselves, themselves. Well, that's not the case. In the past few years, contestants have actually shared their horror stories surrounding their living arrangements. Instead of a private room, all 15 men and women are meant to share separate trailers, with men in one and women in the other. They essentially lived in tightly stacked bunk beds. Now, it's one thing to jam people into like a tiny trailer and call it a gift, but the producers decided it would be a great idea to make their blind lovers stay in their pods for up to 20 hours a day. Not only did they not have enough time in the day to actually sleep, they literally couldn't if they wanted to. The situation was so bad that whenever a couple weren't really hitting it off, they would mutually agree to nap for the rest of their time together. Somewhere out there, there is just thousands of hours of footage of people just being like, hey, are you bored? Cool, I'm gonna just... That sounds like the most devastating way to be rejected on the planet. There are a ton of other reasons that the set was considered to be toxic, but we'll get into those in a sec. Number 9, 50 grand fine. Reality shows are an interesting medium. For a long time, I honestly just assumed that anyone who was on these shows wasn't getting paid, that their payment was just, wearing nice clothes, living at a resort, and performing coitus for 6 weeks straight. But it turns out you do get a little paycheck for participating in a reality show. And I do mean little. For the folks at Love is Blind, they'd be given up to 8 grand over an 8-week period, which sounds kinda good. A grand a week is not that bad, but that payment was something like $17.50 an hour because of the, 20-hour work days, both during and after the pod segments. If the cast members decided that they wanted to leave the show early for any number of reasons, then thanks to the contract that they signed, they would immediately be fined $50,000. Not only were they being underpaid and overworked, but their only option out of the situation would be one hefty fine. Honestly, considering some of the other entries that I'm going to talk about on this list, I'd gladly take a 50 grand L if it meant that I could go home. Number 8, scouting process. For reality TV shows, there has always been a bit of confusion on how they get the people, right? What's the casting process? Where do they find all these unique and interesting individuals for our viewing pleasure? Well, for Love is Blind, they did it the old-fashioned way. Swiping on Tinder and Instagram looking for lonely singles ready to mingle. Now, I wish I was making this up, but in doing research for this video, I found out that this is actually a real process that takes place behind the scenes. Someone is paid to scroll online and DM people to get them onto the show. Several contestants claim that the first messages that they ever received were on Instagram from random accounts linked to producers. Because that's not sketchy at all. Someone wants me to be on Netflix, sign me up. Oh, I just have to send them $1,000 first. Awesome! I'm sorry, that is just the sketchiest way to get hired for a job on the planet. Now, I'm sure there are sketchier things, but I have yet to experience them. Number 7, Mark. Now, who could forget this poor man from the very first season of this show? Mark and Jessica were the couple from reality TV heaven. On screen, they were a chaotic pairing, with Jessica flip-flopping her feelings for Mark over and over again. She would love him, she'd have some no-no juice, then she'd hate him, rinse and repeat. However, behind the scenes, it turned out that Jessica's outbursts may have been warranted. It was revealed after the show aired that Mark was actually seeing someone else while he was on the show, and he actually mentioned it to Jessica. She was, of course, not happy to learn that the man that she was somewhat interested in was already seeing someone else back home, which is probably what caused her to break up and get back together with him like 6 times in one season. I don't know if that's accurate, but it really felt like it is. At the end of the season, she decided to leave Mark at the altar, and he was barely fazed by it. Now we know why. At one point, Mark actually wanted to opt out of his contract, but he was actually pressured to stay in by the producers because they were getting such good content out of this guy. Number 6, the pods. The first portion of this show is dedicated to the contestants spending time in pods, space that is designed to allow all love to bloom without the need of any visual stimulus. The pod segments take up a good portion of the show, but for the contestants, they would spend 20 hours a day in their pods, going from room to room and getting to know each other. Now, 20 hours a day were dedicated to you staring at a wall and talking to someone that you couldn't see, and I'm pretty sure that's the definition of insanity. Okay, the actual definition of insanity is the state of being seriously mentally ill, but you get my point, okay? When you realize they were being paid $7 an hour to do it, this just feels like cruel and unusual punishment. They'd nap in their pods because the sleeping conditions were so bad, but the pods took up so much time that even if they did want to sleep, they wouldn't have any time to pass out and wake up. It wouldn't work. Number 5, no therapy. The premise of this show, for those of you who don't know, which, how did you get this far in the list if you haven't. As potential couples meet in pods with large walls dividing them. Now they can hear each other, but they can't see. The idea is for people to find love with individuals before getting the chance to actually base their love on physical features. When they meet in person, they get some time together before they have to decide if they want to get married or if they want to end things right then and there. Now it's kind of a nice premise, and surprisingly there have been a handful of successful marriages that come out of the show. Amber and Barnett for the win. However, there is a certain mental toll that shows like this just take on you. One former contestant, Nick from season 2, made a list of all of the things to keep in mind when you were watching Love is Blind and posted it on Instagram. One of the first things that he listed out entry by entry was the pressure cooker of the decisions that must be made before you actually get married. Despite the decision making and life changes that the show was responsible for, they apparently provided little to no therapeutic support at all. Nick claimed that he made 3 phone calls to the so-called mental health experts that were designated by the producers, but the conversations were short and usually ended with him being told that it would be taken care of. But of course it never was. For a show centered around emotional connections, the people in charge consider that to be the last thing on their minds. Number 4, be dramatic. It's no secret that some reality shows are actually scripted or self-indulgent. On shows like The Bachelor, they ask contestants to play up the drama, and occasionally someone will literally egg a person into doing something wild. For Love is Blind, they ramp the requests up to 1 million. If you are upset or angry with anyone, just do it! Go yell at them! Find the person who hurt you and just let it out. A ton of the show is edited to make situations look worse than they actually were. I know, it's shocking, eh? Mark and Jessica, for instance, were actually pretty good at communication, but the show was edited to make it look like she had a bit too much no-no juice and flip-flopped on her feelings for Mark. Now, on top of the out-of-context editing, many cast members explained that speaking to production was basically pointless. Sorry, I spit a lot just then. Many cast members explained that speaking to production was basically pointless. If you brought an issue up with them, they would just say, okay, and then move on. At one point, people were literally told to stop speaking to production staff altogether. And in season 2, one contestant, Danielle, got incredibly sick and was made to isolate for a few days. And at one point, she had a panic attack. The moment was edited to make it look like she was jealous of Nick, her potential partner, for speaking to another woman. Number 3, yes, have some. Throughout production of Love is Blind, there is one perk to staying with a ton of people in one trailer and having your escapades recorded for the world to see. That perk is having food and beverage catered 24/7. The contestants were given the chance to take from a large table of various goodies all the time. Pretzels, little sodas, and of course, lots and lots of no-no juice. The no-no juice budget on this show must be insane, and part of the reason why we see so many contestants get tipsy and wild. This would also explain why in season 1, Jessica always seemed to have her adult grape juice on tap, literally holding a fresh glass in every other clip. I know I'm talking about them a lot, man, that just sticks in your head after you see that. The production team has been rumored to be fairly manipulative as time has gone on, and it would be no surprise to learn that they encourage their cast to indulge a little for the cameras. Number 2, after the altar. Following the end of most reality shows, there tends to be a little reunion special. Everyone gets brought back together to go over clips, rehash old arguments, and sometimes they get to squash them too. For Love is Blind, After the Altar brings everyone together, from the people who did get engaged to those whose engagements ended in disaster. This is just another way for the show's producers to squeeze as much drama out of these people as they can. Several couples are still together from the first 4 seasons of the show. There are also a ton of horror stories in between A and B. This isn't really a secret, I just thought it'd be fun to mention that this part of the show is kinda messed up. Just a little bit. And at number 1, exploitation. Taking the top spot on our list is of course the more serious and dark secret of all. As mentioned earlier in this list, the footage taken throughout production is usually edited and taken out of context just to make the show look more interesting. Well, that might be a good idea at first, but let that sink in for a second. Someone's job is to take hours and hours of footage of people having genuine breakdowns, anxiety, stress, all that fun stuff, and edit it to fit their format. Number 10. Will never marry Stedman. Oprah and her partner Stedman have been together for a long time, but have never actually gotten married. While Stedman has never explained why this is, Oprah shared her side of the story. According to Oprah, getting married would mean that she would not be able to, quote, have her own life, claiming that everything she's built on her own would be at risk, like he was some kind of a career parasite. The strangest part about her logic behind this is the fact that she said on air that she actually wanted Stedman to propose to her as soon as possible. possible. Their relationship has survived a lot despite the years of rumors and speculation. However, a source close to Oprah said that in her 4 years with the show, she could tell that there was absolutely nothing there with this man. Oprah just wanted to portray herself as a woman who loved her husband, and he wasn't even her husband, so she was just someone who loved her guy. In reality, Stedman probably has a house separate to Oprah, but like 1/5 of the size. Number 9. She's a diva. On air, Oprah is portrayed as this wholesome, sweet lady, but according to her family, there is an unknown side to Oprah hidden from fans for years. According to Barbara, Oprah's stepmother, she is one of the most controlling people that you're ever going to meet in your entire life. She claims that Oprah would not allow them to stay at her house whenever they would try to visit, forcing them to stay in hotels with money out of their own pockets. Barbara also said that Oprah was quick to anger when it came to her staff, with several people being fired over the years left and right. But that's not all. Despite being a billionaire, Barbara allows Oprah to stay at her house when she comes for visits, but apparently Oprah hates every second of that. From the first time she stayed till probably last week, Oprah just complains about her bed sheets that aren't 1,000 threads and that her bath towels aren't big enough. But big bath towels are a luxury, so I get that one. This woman has billions of dollars to do literally anything that she wants, but apparently the only thing she wants to do is make her family feel bad. Number 8, her spiritual beliefs. I'm gonna start this entry by clarifying that I'm not making fun of your beliefs. If you're spiritual, please know this entry is not about you, it's about Oprah and just Oprah. In an interview with Harper Bazaar, Oprah mentioned her daily morning routine that starts at 8:30 with various spiritual exercises. After reading Gathered Truths, she opens an app called Bowl of Sake that delivers teachings of the Sufi, followed by some light meditation. The controversy here comes from Oprah inviting several self-fulfillment gurus onto her show and gushing about them over the years, and especially Guru Gary Zuka's preachings. Oprah herself claimed to have secret spiritual knowledge about tapping into personal courage and giving general spiritual advice. She stopped diving too deep into spirituality after the backlash from her fans and readers of her magazine. Number 7. Wild Child. Several books have been published about Oprah over the years. Some of them were from her, some of them were not. In her own book that she wrote herself, she revealed that growing up, she was far from this easy kid to handle. When she was young, she was sent to live with her father Vernon after Oprah was caught stealing from her mom. Despite being an on-screen persona known for charity and kindness, she was actually a menace throughout most of her life, according to her family. As I've mentioned on several lists before this, Oprah's stepmother, and I also said it on this one. As I mentioned just previously on this list, Oprah's stepmother is not allowed to stay at her house, and she's known to be pretty controlling. She admitted to doing some pretty troubling things at a young age, including staging an amnesia bout, where she broke several things in her mom's house and called the police, pretending not to know what happened. Yeah, according to Oprah's mom, she was uncontrollable, ungrateful, and I'm pretty sure after that situation, just a little bit crazy. Number 6, her buddy, Dr. Phil. Oprah's not just responsible for many hopes and dreams being squashed live on air, but she is also the creator of many talk show celebrities, like health expert Dr. Oz and life coach Dr. Phil. Before Dr. Phil had his own show, Oprah had asked him and his courtroom consulting firm to help with the trial. Now, before even meeting Oprah, Phil actually had zero interest in being a television personality, but Oprah decided, hey, I'm gonna force this guy to do it, convince him, make him see the light. According to Phil, she helped him understand the power of these shows and what they were truly made for. Profit. For Phil, he brings people on his show who are struggling with personal issues that just so happen to be great for television, like the Cash Me Outside girl. Dr. Phil made her famous, because that's fair. But it's not just Phil that's had some controversial moments. Her other protege, Dr. Oz, has had a lot of rough moments over the years. His show is centered around medicine and health. He brings so-called health experts on week after week. My mom used to love this show, so unfortunately I'm very familiar with this man. Oprah was partnered with both of these people, meaning that whenever they got money, she got some of it too. She doesn't like to advertise how much she actually makes from these guys, but considering how many episodes they have and how long the programs have been running for, it's probably a decent little chunk of cash. Number 5. Let's get into some of the celebrities that don't like Oprah now, because honestly there's not a lot of secrets that haven't been revealed. Number 5. Seth McFarland. The creator of Family Guy and the TED series is not a fan of Oprah Winfrey. During the whole 2020 situation with masks and the isolation, and you know what I'm talking about, Seth decided to share some words of wisdom about Oprah Winfrey. He started by acknowledging that Oprah had done some pretty altruistic things with her career, but that she has used her platform to amplify the voices of outlandish characters rather than legitimate scientists or medical professionals. The post included a link to the LA Times that discussed misinformation from Dr. Phil and, of course, from Dr. Oz. He was claiming that a ton of what was discussed on their shows was nothing more than misinformation and entertaining disasters. The Cash Me Outside girl, the purple guy who drank silver water like it was his job, and so many more that I can't actually talk about on the internet. He called Oprah out for starting out as a legitimate show with the goal of education, and instead it just kind of morphed into this misinformative cartoon. Number 4. Rose McGowan. A ton of A-listers out there will be on Oprah's side through thick and thin, that's just the way it is. However, Scream alumni and Me Too activist Rose McGowan is not one of those people. Former Charmed star tweeted a photo from 2014 involving Oprah Winfrey kissing the cheek of one of the most disgraced men in Hollywood history. I can't say his name and we can't put pictures of him up on this video, but he looks like Jabba the Hutt. And he worked with Quentin Tarantino, so I'm just gonna call him Jabba the Hutt for the rest of this video. The photo was taken from the 2014 Critics' Choice Awards. She posted on Twitter that she was glad to see the ugly truth about Oprah coming to light. She wished Oprah were real, but she's not. She's as fake as they come. Hashtag lizard. No, she didn't add that last part, but I did. Winfrey claims she didn't know what was going on back then and regretted being so close to such a terrible man. A terrible man that I really wish we could talk about, but can't do that. No, it's not happening. Number 3. Kid Rock. Kid has never been shy about his opinions on anything, especially when it comes to Oprah. A while back, Kid Rock was escorted out of his own steakhouse in Nashville, Tennessee for ranting about Oprah in a no-no juice-fueled tirade. He told TMZ that his PR team actually tried to get him on Oprah at one point, and Oprah's team just wanted Kid to write down 5 reasons why he loved Oprah's show. That was it. And he said F that and threw that offer out the window. Over the following years and to this day, he's tweeted his opinions and feelings about Oprah, with the big summary being that he just kinda doesn't vibe with her. Literally saying that he could not explain why. Maybe it was just because he didn't believe she was nice or charitable, but he was certain that she was secretly a menace, and look where we are now. Number 2, Mel Gibson. Alright, there's been a ton of misinformation spread across the internet since this whole Oprah thing has gone down. For a while, people believed that Jason Momoa and Tom Hanks had inside information on Oprah and that it needed to be shared with the world, but that was all a lie and neither of those people ever actually said a word about Oprah. Another celebrity brought into this mix is Mel Gibson. This man is fueled by controversy, so it's understandable. For the past few weeks, clips and comments have been making their way across the globe, alleging that Mel Gibson has this inside scoop on Oprah's secret agenda, that he's ready to share it with the world. But once again, this is a lie. It turns out that someone out there loves using AI to make stuff, and it would appear that someone somewhere wrote controversial Oprah into a bar and bam, there was a script. Now, I don't use AI for a lot of stuff, so I'm not really sure if that's the process or not, so that could have been a silly sentence to say. Mel has spoken out claiming that he's never actually received any inside information on Oprah, and that he's been fairly neutral on the whole Maui thing, so the so-called hate towards her just doesn't exist. And at number 1, the Maui Funds scandal. Now, who would have guessed this lady, who was famous for handing out cars on her show, got cancelled by the world? Well, it's probably because she made a career-ending mistake when herself and Dwayne broke the one rule of being rich: don't ask poor people for their money. A while ago, Oprah and The Rock announced that they would be starting a relief fund for the victims of Maui, and the People's Fund of Maui was given a solid like $10 million to get off the ground. Which is great, $10 million, it's a lot of money, donated by Oprah Winfrey and Dwayne Johnson combined. So why is it just Oprah that gets so much hate? Well, it's cause she has a net worth of like $2.8 billion, which is a lot of money. The world is collectively furious at Oprah for having the audacity to ask working class citizens for charity when most people can barely afford to put food on their table. Not to mention, the $5 million that Oprah actually put into the fund, it turns out was taxed money, so it's not actually her money. She was just like, oh, that's nice, I'm just gonna put this in here for now. The Rock and Oprah donated $5 million each, which is great, but again, $5 million to Oprah is like $500 to us. It's not a lot. Oprah addressed all the hate online, telling the Daily Mail that she's just disappointed in the reaction from the world. No one is focusing on the good things and the people of Maui. Instead, the world is just mad that she asked them to give her a nickel. Number 10, do not come. As many may know, in the past couple of weeks, Taylor has been spotted at more and more Chief games, cheering on the Kansas City Chiefs alongside Travis Kelce's mama, who you would think an enthusiastic and energetic crowd member would be a nice addition to the game and welcomed by the players. Well, apparently not Taylor. In the last couple of weeks, a trend has been flooding the internet of people trolling their boyfriends by claiming that Taylor Swift made Travis famous. On top of the annoying amount of content based around that, Taylor has been seen regularly attending the games with a lot of attention being put on her instead of the actual game. You know, cameras zoom in, fans cheer for her instead of the players, but the team seems to be turning this into a motivational thing as they have won every single game that she's attended so far, which is why several football players for the Philadelphia Eagles have started begging Taylor to sit out their game versus the Chiefs. One player, Eagles quarterback Darius Slay, mentioned Taylor during an episode of his podcast, Darius's Big Play, and jokingly told Taylor not to be present when they visited the Chiefs on their home turf. It seems that Taylor is their good luck charm and everybody knows it. Their next game is scheduled for October 9th, going up against the Minnesota Vikings, so fingers crossed she comes to that game and keeps this streak going. Number 9, mama drama. Throughout a ton of this Travis and Taylor drama, there's been one woman by her side through most of it, and that is Travis's mom, Donna. Donna was recently interviewed by the podcast Got It From My Mama and explained that spending time with Taylor Swift has felt like being in an alternate universe. She was mostly just surprised and excited by all the hype surrounding her son and his possible new relationship with Taylor. Every week the hype gets bigger and bigger, but what Donna doesn't remember is that Taylor has a long history of chilling with her boo's mamas. In the past, she's been seen living it up with Joe Alwyn's mom, who she was with for over 6 years. She spent a ton of time with Joe Jonas's mom, even though their relationship was pretty short, so if anything, Donna should be nervous. The more time this woman spends with you, the more likely it'll be that she breaks your son's heart and then writes a song about it. Chief of My Heart, Kansas City Chameleon, You Suck! Those are just some of the titles, just some ideas for Taylor in case that actually does happen. Number 8, running for president. Now, this entry is a little bit recent and it just popped up in the news cycle. It hasn't been confirmed as really happening yet, but is pretty neat and I thought we should talk about it. The United States may still be a year away from electing a new president. Sure, Joe Biden might get another term and serve a full 8 years, but not if Taylor Swift has anything to say about it. The former director of strategic communications for the White House, Elisa Griffin, was speaking with The View Behind the Table, which is a podcast, when the topic of Taylor Swift and Travis came up. Now, Elisa was pretty excited to talk about the situation with them, but then shared some information on Taylor regarding political stuff. She claimed that if the country wanted to see Donald Trump stay out of the office, that the only smart move may be to throw Taylor's name into the running. As pointed out by several of my co-workers, Swifties make up like over 50% of the country, so the moment that her name appears on the ballot, she'd win in a landslide. People who've never voted in their lives would register just to get her into the office. Now that's when the fun begins. Personally, I have no political views, but the idea of Taylor Swift becoming the president of the United States, for some reason it just doesn't feel that far-fetched. Number 7, restaurateur. Over the last few days, the rumors that Taylor Swift is dating Kansas Chief tight end Travis Kelce have been running rampant, and they were actually spotted attending a Chiefs game, and of course she was spotted attending a few Chiefs games with Travis's mother and leaving the events with Travis. But those rumors were cemented as true and that they probably are a couple when Taylor decided to buy out and clear an entire restaurant for the day, while people were still eating their meals. According to several patrons of an unnamed establishment, they were happily eating their meals when they noticed that the waiters started slowly making their way around the room. When they approached the table, they were informed that their meal was paid for, but they would have to leave right then, right now. The patrons left, and when they returned later on, filled with curiosity, they discovered that it was Taylor Swift who kicked them out. Getting your meal paid for by a stranger sounds cool, but imagine how awkward that scenario is. Hi there, your meal's paid for, now get out please, just leave. Listen, I don't care who you are, if you wanted to have so much privacy, maybe just go home and order Popeyes, Uber Eats, anything else. Number 6, party hardy. Taylor has a ton of A-list buddies that she spends her time with, but one woman who's been making headlines alongside Taylor has been Sophie Turner. Sophie, of course, is going through a very public divorce with one of Taylor's ex-boyfriends, Joe Jonas. The two of them are currently in a pretty public battle for the rights to their kids, years, and the divorce has brought several things to light that has caused the courts to force Joe and Sophie to do couples counseling while they try to figure out how to properly handle the situation. But instead of attending the classes and trying to keep her family together, it seems like Sophie has been out and about partying with Taylor Swift. Taylor is a terrible influence and has been living it up with Sophie for the past couple of weeks, apparently keeping each other occupied while Joe goes into a downward spiral. Sophie has accused Joe of a lot of stuff during this whole thing, and Taylor has just been standing there telling her that everything's fine and she's doing the right thing. Number 5, the profiter of pain. If there's one thing that Taylor Swift is famous for, it's taking tragedy and turning it into triumph. Her career is basically just built on the backbone of her broken relationships. Men like Harry Styles, Tom Hiddleston, and many more are set to be the inspiration for some honestly catchy songs. You can hate on her all you want, but I'll still be dancing to Shake It Off every time it plays. Just because the songs are good though doesn't always mean that the person who's inspired them is going to enjoy them. While some of her exes like Joe Alwyn have been pretty supportive when it comes to Taylor's writing, other people like Tom Hiddleston have not been so stoked. Taylor is clearly a sour topic for a lot of people. Even the happy-go-lucky Jake Gyllenhaal would rather not talk about his time with Taylor, and honestly we can't blame him. Imagine the worst breakup you've ever gone through in your entire life, and now imagine that it was a top 10 on Spotify. Your soul would be crushed. Number 4, Travis Kelce. This is the most recent entry to Taylor's library of possible partners. Travis Kelce is a football player for the Kansas City Chiefs, and Taylor was spotted attending one of his games a few weeks ago. So there was nothing out of the ordinary there, but then there was more. Taylor got spotted attending the event with his mom, literally sitting arm in arm together the entire night, and they've done that a couple of times now. Taylor was then photographed cheering him on from the sidelines, his mother just as excited as she was, and if that wasn't enough, they were later photographed walking out of the stadium together arm in arm. Now, this dude's been on podcasts talking about how he can't say much and not really specifying if he is or is not with Taylor. Only people hiding something say that, okay? As the weeks go by, we're gonna get more and more proof that this dude is dating Taylor, but for now, it's still just speculation. Number 3, transportation. There was a massive theory going around the internet as Taylor started her Eras tour, and people were wondering how it was possible for her to get around venues when there were crazed fans literally around every single corner. And not to mention, in order to get to the stage of most outdoor venues, you have to be exposed to the public even for the briefest of moments. But there was one common theme at all of her shows. The event staff were always seen pushing this tall janitor's cart back and forth before the show would begin. Now, the first red flag was the people pushing this thing had earbuds in their heads and they were wearing black t-shirts, not exactly janitor clothes, and eventually a fan was able to get the right angle and capture a moment when Taylor stepped out of the cart backstage. Not only did this confirm the rumor, but Taylor's secret vehicle had been outed to the world. Now, I'm not going to be attending the concert because I'm not that rich, but for those of you who are attending, keep an eye out for 2 people in black t-shirts pushing a random coffin around or something down the halls. Number 2, the Master. If you've ever purchased a ticket for something online, then you're probably no stranger to Ticketmaster. It's one of the most popular ticket purchasing programs on the planet. When it was announced in 2022 that Taylor would be doing this whole Eras World Tour thing, the ticket sales were insane. So insane that she single-handedly took that website down. Well, her fans did. So after the pre-sales went up for the Eras Tour, an astonishing 2.5 million Swifties got into their virtual queues and started ordering tickets. 2.5 million people is a ton of online foot traffic. Think about all those people going in at once to buy their tickets. 2.5 million people! Yeah, so the website glitched and millions of fans were unable to find or purchase their tickets. The glitch was eventually fixed and Ticketmaster took away one of the options for general tickets until the majority of the pre-sales had been gone. Now, Taylor wasn't directly responsible, but following the news, she said nothing except, oops, I didn't know, that's my bad. Yeah, she didn't care one single bit. She was just glad that her bank account was nice and full. Number 1, she can't swim. Taylor Swift knows how to put on a good show, okay? And this next entry just proves that sentence. During one of her first shows of the Era Tour in Glendale, Arizona, Taylor stood in front of her fans as a small hole opened up in the stage. She jumped in and a masterpiece in LED technology started to play. She jumped in and waves flowed across the stage as a bird's eye view showed her swimming from one end of the stage to the other. Granted, it's definitely not Taylor and it's just a projected image, but that's still neat, you know? That's why I said that she can't swim, because she's not swimming, get it? The sequence ended with a large wave hitting the back of the stage, with Taylor appearing underneath a cloud in a new outfit as the waves vanished. Thankfully, it worked out on stage, as it was reported that during the rehearsals for the show, Taylor actually missed her mark a couple of times and belly flopped into the pool, which would have made for a pretty different show. Number 10, his final words. The first police officer at the scene when Tupac passed away revealed in 2014 what the very last words he ever spoke were. Last words are a defining moment in our lives, the final sentence that leaves our lips before we vanish. Sometimes it's lovely and meaningful, but as you may expect, Tupac's final words were anything but peaceful. The officer who heard these words kept them to himself for years, only revealing what they were almost 20 years later. The officer explained that Tupac took a deep breath to get the words out, and he opened his eyes. According to the former sergeant from Las Vegas Police Department, his final words were, "F you," only he said more than just a letter. A very Tupac way to go out of this world, the officer felt the need to withhold the information while an investigation was taking place. They didn't want the headlines to read, "Final words F you," instead they wanted to make it known that the case was serious and that they were on top of it. Now in 2023, the case is reopened and there might be some closure, but that has yet to come. Speaking of which, number 9, who ended his life? If you're watching this entry, you are more than familiar with Tupac Shakur and how he met his end. Almost a week after being blasted by an unidentified assailant in his own SUV, he passed away on September 13th, 1996. He was only 25 at the time, and thanks to his very public feud with fellow artist Biggie Smalls, his passing led to years of rumors and speculation as to who really did the deed. 6 months following his passing, Biggie was caught slaying another person in a very eerily similar fashion. The evidence was pointing to the artist, and the only person who could truly point the finger was Shakur himself. However, a few days ago it was revealed that a man named Dwayne Davis was arrested on suspicion of slaying Tupac. The police suspected his involvement for years, but it wasn't until he started doing press that they had enough evidence to reopen the case. In 2009, he confessed to being in the area on camera, boasting about how close he was to the moment. In recent years, he's been painting a picture that he was front and center when things went down. While there has been no conviction just yet, the officers involved are confident that they have caught the man responsible for taking down a man considered to be one of the greatest of all time. Number 8, he wanted to act. While not known for his time on the silver screen, one of Tupac's main goals in life was to have his face on the cover of a movie poster. Well, that dream came true in 1992 thanks to the film Juice, a crime drama featuring several big-wig actors like Sam Jackson. The film was a critical darling with a little bit of everything for both fans of Tupac and fans of the crime thriller genre. In the few years before his passing, Tupac starred in a handful of other projects, movies like Poetic Justice, Above the Rim, and Gridlocked being the most lucrative. Despite his presence in the world of music, his public feuds and fallouts, he was able to get his face on a poster and people actually really liked it. Now, I'm not a big Tupac guy, in case that wasn't obvious, but it's cool that he got the chance to do his thing before someone decided that he shouldn't be around anymore, and I just kind of wanted to talk about it. Number 7, relationship to Jada Pinkett Smith. Decades after Tupac's passing, people still had questions about his relationship to Miss Pinkett Smith. Rumors had been circulating with some claiming that Jada may have had a hand in what happened. Well, while doing an interview on Sway Universe, she weighed in on her relationship with Tupac. Jada said that when she first met Tupac, she was a purveyor of narcotics, so to speak, continuing to explain that this was how they first bonded. She clarified that something really terrible made her leave the world behind, but she had already introduced Shakur to the scene. As she got out, he got deeper in. She claimed that they were close for many years, even claiming to have paid a bail of $100 grand after Tupac was held for possible mistreatment charges. Now, what makes their relationship more questionable is Will Smith expressing his jealousy towards the late musician. Will claimed that while things never got physical, their love for each other was legendary. The interview only made it seem like Jada had a ton of skeletons in her closet that were yet to be revealed, so we shall see how things go. Number 6, his last name means thankful. A fun fact about Tupac Shakur is the meaning of his last name. Tupac was born in Brooklyn, New York to members of the Black Panther Party. Now, if you don't know what that is, take a history class. His first name, Tupac, came from the 18th century Peruvian revolutionary Tupac Amaru II, whose name meant shining serpent. Amaru II led the largest rebellion in Spanish colonial history. Though the indigenous uprising was unsuccessful and he was executed as a consequence, the revolutionary became a mythical figure in Peruvian struggle for independence, as well as the inspiration for several Spanish-American causes and beyond. And Shakur is an Arabic word for thankful. So, shining and thankful were this man's first and last name. Legendary. Number 5. his love of Shakespeare. So in doing research for this video, I found a ton of fun facts about Tupac that have nothing to do with dark secrets or anything, so let's talk about some of those for a minute. For starters, Tupac was a massive fan of William Shakespeare. While he was attending the Baltimore School for the Arts, Tupac was a well-known thespian. According to Tupac himself, he just loved this guy, claiming that Shakespeare wrote some of the most raw stories of all time, and then saying that Romeo and Juliet was some hardcore stuff. Before his passing, Tupac even claimed that Shakespeare was one of his main inspirations growing up. He attempted to create music that discussed the human condition, and he wanted to showcase what a man in his situation was capable of. As life went on, he poured his heart and soul into his lyrics, just like Willie Shakespeare. Number 4, he knew about the holograms in 1993. Oddly enough, holograms are becoming a real thing that is just kinda normal. I was at a festival over the summer and there were just logos floating in midair, spinning in 3D. It hurt my brain, but in a good way. However, back in 2012, a hologram was unique and new. In comes Snoop Dogg with special guest hologram Tupac. Snoop was headlining Coachella in 2012, where he sang a duet with the holographic Shakur live on stage, also joined by Dr. Dre. The lifelike hologram sparked some pretty mixed reactions, varying from, hey, that's pretty cool, to, like zoinks, it's a monster! A ton of people thought it was so real that surely Tupac was alive, and he offered himself up for a full body scan. However, one darker rumor that may never be proven is that Tupac knew about holograms existing in 1993. This is a popular conspiracy theory online, okay? It's not my personal opinion. I just thought it may be fun to chat about holograms possibly existing in the early 90s. According to a ton of online forums, not only is Tupac alive on an island somewhere, but he is also the keeper of government knowledge. Whether he knew back in the day or not is one thing, but the way his hologram moves makes the world think that he must have scanned his body before he passed, so that the digital copy of him would exist for all time. Number 3, Snoop Dogg. Tupac and Snoop Dogg had a very public feud when they first met, but they were eventually able to move past their differences, squash their beef, and Snoop Dogg has gone on record telling the world there is nothing but love between them. Their friendship may be discussed a lot, but we haven't covered it here on BTS before, so let's give it a little chat. Snoop was very close to Tupac before his passing, and in recent years, when asked about Shakur in interviews, Snoop gets a little bit emotional and gets deep into it. During one particular appearance on Logan Paul's podcast, Snoop told the story of visiting Tupac in the hospital in the final days before his passing. At the time, both of them were signed to the same record label and had recently collaborated together on 2 of America's Most Wanted. At the time Tupac was in hospital, they were not on the greatest of terms thanks to some personal drama, but that didn't stop Snoop from telling his buddy how much he loved him. Tupac was unconscious, so there was never a real sense of closure for Snoop, but he is very thankful to have had the time to speak to his buddy one last time. Number 2, his net worth. Tupac was a major player in the music industry, still considered to be one of the greatest of all time to this day. Despite passing away in 1996, his music was still being edited and released after his passing. Dozens of albums have been released over the years, but one thing that is still unconfirmed is just how much Tupac was actually worth before he passed away. A majority of his music was released following his passing, with only a handful being major hits while he was still alive. Unfortunately, he was taken out way before he was able to properly enjoy his success and his new bank account. Sure, you can Google Tupac net worth and it shows you a number, but the real number will always be unknown. Tupac's the only person who knows what money he had set aside, maybe hidden in a drawer or in a mattress, and he's the only one who knows what his most prized possession really was. So far as we know, he had a good chunk when he passed, but for all we know, that amount could be immeasurable. And at number 1, the truth. If you made it this far into the list, I just want to say thank you for sticking around. I really hope you've learned a little something along the way. Not much to learn in this video, but still, good job getting here. Taking the top spot on this list is, of course, the truth, because despite the police opening an investigation and having a suspect in custody, the only person who could give a detailed walkthrough of the night that Tupac was taken out is Tupac. Only he can describe the person who took him down, the exact scenarios that may have led to the drive-by, and so much more.